Hey everybody, welcome to a brand spanking new. Where did? Never mind. I'm not going to dwell on that terminology.
It's going off on a
Um,
tangent immediately.
before moving into the intro episode of the Jodo Cast, your home for Star Wars gaming. I'm Joe, and with me we've got Kurt
Hello.
and we got Leo.
Hey,
What has everybody been playing since last week convened in our hovels? I need a basement. I'm the only one not in a basement, I think.
I'm not in a basement.
is
Oh,
is is Arizona one of those states where like nobody has basements? I don't know.
correct. There are no basements aren't normal here,
That's weird.
which is sad. You think you'd? I think it's not for lack of wanting to be under the ground. I think it's just the ground's not good for digging holes.
You'd think it would be nice because you'd have a nice, cool place to go.
Yeah,
It'd make
like
sense.
a Gila monster.
Yeah.
We should all be building underground houses out there. I mean, that's probably the only way I could survive in Arizona.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm surprised. There needs to be more, like in Minnesota and stuff, where they have those like tunnels that connect buildings, so you never have to be outside in the winter.
Yeah, I
Like
love those.
there should be more things like that, but here, so I don't have to be outside in the sun, and I can stay in the air conditioned. The whole city should be air conditioned. Anyway, what have you guys, Kurt? What have you played?
Still been playing some Jedi Survivor. Kind of slowly getting through the story, unlocking more abilities. I can finally jump on balloons, and I'm having a lot of fun jumping on balloons, even in force tears. I know this is a controversial opinion, but I'm enjoying the force tears where you have to jump and not just like fight. I mean, the fighting ones are fun too, but yeah, I'm just having fun like exploring and stuff. I have killed one major bad guy, which means I'm probably about 25% of the way through the game. The way people have described it online, the number of endings you have to go through before you actually beat it, but it's fun. I like it. It hasn't been crashing as much lately. I don't know if that's due to patches or just luck or what, but it's been going pretty good. I think that's the only thing I've played.
Leo, what have you been playing?
I've got in a little bit of Shatterpoint again here,
Nice.
like another game. I did also finally get to sit down with the deck builder and play a few games of that.
Nice. I'm
Nice.
surprised it took you that long to get to it. It's very
Well,
good.
it is, and I've wanted to. It's just I don't know, like haven't had much time to uh my play games with my family, and I haven't just been able to schedule time with someone else to play. So there we go. Finally got around to it though. It was good. I enjoyed it. I do wish there was more options to exile cards.
You gotta get the actually there's I think it's just the Keldor Exile and there's two copies, and I think other than that there's like a lot of rewards for bounty hunting and sabotaging that let you exile stuff.
Mhm. Yeah.
But
Yeah,
yeah.
but like I said, just because that's my personal play style with these types of games. But
Keep the deck nice and slim.
like I said, it's
Mhm.
there's that expansion symbol looking thing on the cards, which gives me hope there might be some future expansions for that game. Maybe we'll add
Yeah.
more exile options.
I wonder when.
Maybe we'll find out at Gen Con.
That feels like it might be a very short turnaround between core product and first expansion for Fantasy Flight for like a
Especially compared
non
to like Outer Rim or Rebellion.
right.
At the
Yeah.
same time, it should be a lot like lighter weight thing to expand. I would feel like compared to the board games, but I don't know. What do I know?
We know everything, Kurt. You got to project confidence. That's what comes with being on a platform like ours. Is we know everything, and we tell people what to think. That's our whole deal. um,
Before we get
I've
into what thinking, like what have you played?
uh, Shatterpoint,
Mm-hmm.
and that might be it. I spent a lot of time editing our first Shatterpoint gameplay video, so please go watch that because it took. I was like, I can't paint because I need to edit this video. It took me forever. I think that's it. I'm excited to get back to painting Shatterpoint. I finally primed the last of my minis today. I did a couple unboxings, which we unboxed Star Wars Rivals, which I'm excited to get to play soon. I'm gonna swing by Walmart sometime and see if they have the boosters, because the game comes with 4 characters, but you need 3 on a side to play. So
Hmm.
you can play out of the box. It gives you like little tokens for like losers to be on your team, but I'd rather just get more characters.
I am looking forward to you reporting back that the game is terrible, because I really hate the way all the minis look, and I don't want it to turn out that the game's actually good and that I should buy it, because they're so ugly.
I thought the die looked cool though.
Yeah, it's like lozenge D6.
And I liked that the cards were not just rectangles. I know it makes them hard to sleeve, but they looked cool. They're like weird shapes.
That was, I think we were making fun of that in our unboxing, where they're basically every single component in the game except the tokens are like an abnormal non-standard shape, which, I mean, it does kind of add a little bit of, I don't know what the word is,
Kind of
ambiance.
Star
Or,
Warsy flavor, yeah.
yeah,
Little sci-fi
but
cards. Because
It's
they're like almost sabacc card shaped a little bit. Some of them, so it's kind of
it's
cool.
it's funny how just changing the shape a little bit makes things like sci-fi. Like in
Yeah.
Battlestar Galactica, where they just snipped the corners off every piece of paper, and then suddenly it was all like, there's paper from the future. But it worked.
yeah, I think that's it. I do have a mighty need to play KOTOR now that we did an unboxing of the limited run games KOTOR thing, which is pretty cool. I don't think I've even played Survivor since we last recorded. Like I'm going through with Bethany and we're recording it, and it's just we haven't had time.
See, I think this is the problem with everyone trying to rush through on release week. You guys all like burnt out on it. Me, I'm taking it nice and slow. It's like a marathon. I'm in it for the long game here.
Well, see, I'm enjoying our playthrough because it's my second playthrough, so I'm like, ooh, I get to do it all again. But it's just I want to play more, and we haven't had time because busy things. Speaking of things, this time I just want to say this week, but I don't think we release on a weekly basis. So this time, this parsec, this
Cycle.
Chrono
this
unit.
cycle,
Chrono unit.
we're talking about Star Wars Unlimited, which is we've talked about on here before, and we're talking about it some more. The trading card game coming from Fantasy Flight, the, dare I say, CCG Reborn.
Mm,
Okay. I'm gonna hand over the deck to to our card game, our chief card game officer, or whatever your title is that we make up.
so
We're passing it over to Leo, our resident card game expert, who has probably played every single Star Wars card game. Is that safe to assume,
I
or at least
I
tried
haven't
to?
I haven't played Pocket Models.
Oh, ooh, fake fan.
I never
That's
played
that.
the. I
Is
never
that a
played
card
the.
game? I thought that was like a miniatures game.
Well, it's a card game, but you also had little like cardboard minis of like the ships that you would assemble
Little
too.
standees.
Yeah,
Yeah, kind of like how Destiny has dice, but it's still a card game.
yeah.
Yeah, I feel like that counts.
I never played the Clone Wars Adventures card game either.
I think then also, I don't know if it's a card game or what you'd call it, but I do remember there was a stint probably between like 2008 and 2011 or something where the Hasbro figures included a stat card for the character of the figure you bought and a little die. I still have some of those dice. I don't know if I have the cards. I don't know
Yeah,
how the game played.
yeah. I forget what the
That's,
heck those were called too, but yeah, I know what you're talking about. They were like sort of like the little like super deformed looking kind of like, or like chibi looking figures, kind of.
no, it was the standard 3.75-inch figures. They came with a, because they also came with stands, which a lot of miniature figures didn't. They came with the stands, with the pegs for the bottom of the feet, and each stand had a little slot where you would slot in the card, which was smaller than a standard size card, but it had their stats, and they each came with a die that had special symbols on it. Um, I had a couple of them, but I never bothered to learn what the game was because it
And
was
that
just like,
was
let's stand our figures here and like roll a die until we tip one over.
that was like in that period where I was not buying any action figures. Or
Right.
at
That
least
was in
not
the
any
period
Star
where
Wars
I was
ones.
like, oh, you know what?
So like
I think I still have a sealed Cad Bane one from
Like I
that
kind of quit
series.
buying Star Wars action figures once I got into college, and then didn't really start up again till Black Series stuff came out.
yeah, the brief window where you were like too old for kids' toys, but like you hadn't reached the age where you're like, you know what, I'm an adult and I can buy whatever I want, right?
Well,
No, I mean, I was
that was
I
the
was
whole
at
thing
that
for
age. I
me.
was an adult. I wasn't at home anymore, but it was more like I'm a broke college kid, and I've also got to buy all these fucking magic cards and comic books. I ain't got money for action figures.
Anyway,
Yes,
uh,
back to cards.
cards. Leo, tell us
um,
about Star Wars Unlimited and what's new. Why are we here today? What has gathered us together?
so the other day, Fantasy Flight finally officially released the quick start rules for the game. Technically, they had leaked out um, prior to this via, I believe it was a Spanish Lorcana Discord. As far as everyone knows, that's the first place it was posted on.
Lorcana sounds like it might just be a Spanish word.
But we had kind of held off discussing them until Fantasy Flight decided to officially release them, which they have now. Um, and then they also had a live stream to kind of go over the rules. They said, they mentioned they kind of wanted to get these out here, or at least they said in the stream they wanted to get them out there so people can kind of be familiar with the game going into demos at Gen Con a little bit later this summer.
Doesn't feel like a very good excuse. It feels way earlier than anyone else would release rules for anything, right? So feels
Yeah,
kind
I
of
mean,
flimsy.
we really can't
It's
say.
nice, but
It is nice. It's like I agree. It seems like way earlier than any games ever like dropped their rules. Usually, it's like maybe a month beforehand. Um,
Eh,
and
Um,
this is at the earliest. January 1st is when we can expect this game at the earliest. So who
yep,
knows?
yep.
Anytime next.
They did confirm 2024 simultaneous release around the world. Um, that I know a lot of people, including myself, were sort of reading a lot into in their previous stream where they were really emphasizing the word globally, weirdly for some reason. Um, but yeah,
Well,
so just
do other
2024 release. So
wonder
yeah,
how
just
global it will be. Like, I feel like card games. It seems like with miniatures games, it's really just sort of North America, Europe, and then speckles in like Southeast Asia and South America. I feel like maybe card games have a much bigger reach than.
yeah, I don't think they've announced yet what other languages the game's going to be localized to at launch. At least not that I remember hearing. But the live stream they had Joss Massey, who's their OP manager, and then they had Danny Schaefer, who's the lead game designer, and Jim Cartwright, who is the co-designer and is also newly promoted VP of strategy at Fantasy Flight.
What does that mean? Like, what does the word strategy mean at a game
Well, I
company?
think it's
Like,
like business strategy.
product
game
strategy.
strategy.
Yeah,
On the previous live stream,
Got to
strategy
come up with those
games.
pro strats.
his
How do
his
we beat this game?
his title was manager of product strategy or something like that. Now he's the vice president, so moving
Wow.
on up.
Hmm. Not at the
Um,
top yet, though. Next stream, he'll be president. And the next stream after that, he'll just be emperor of strategy.
so I think so. They kind of just jumped into it right away here first. Wanted to go over how the resource system for the game works. So resources, how you're going to play cards. Every card has a cost associated with it. Um, and resources are what you use to pay it. They can be any card. You can play any card you have face down as a resource. And then at that point, if you've played anything like Magic, it works basically just like a land in Magic, where you will exhaust or tap the card to get one resource from it. So at the start of the game, you'll take two cards out of your opening hand, put those down, so you start the game already with two resources in play. It's a little different than a lot of the games I've played, but they did say, they tested it a lot with just zero resources at the start or even just one resource, but they felt like your first couple turns were pretty much just playing a resource anyway. So why not
It seems,
start with them out, get you into action right off the bat.
Yeah.
yeah. Do any other games do resources like this? Because at least to me, it seems pretty unique and cool.
I believe
Like,
that the World of Warcraft card game did something similar to this,
Hmm.
where you can
Interesting.
use cards from your hand as resources. I'm not 100% sure, but I believe that's what I've seen other people say. I own some World of Warcraft cards. I think I've only
wow.
ever actually played it once, though, many years ago.
It's not a Star Wars game, so
Yeah.
you're not allowed to. But yeah, I thought this resource system was kind of neat, especially if you have cards in your hand that like you don't have a use for. You can kind of strategically be like, "Oh, those are the ones I'm going to resource," and like that's fine. It's kind of
I'm
more open ended and kind of interesting.
right, and you're never going to be in that situation where you just fail to get cards in your hand that provide you with resources,
Yeah, I
which
like that a
happens in other
lot.
games. I'm also just curious how many times are you going to be like halfway through the game and you'd be like, ah, I wish that one card I hadn't turned into a resource and I brought it back into my hand.
I'm sure there's going to be times. I wouldn't be surprised if there. We haven't seen anything that does it yet, but it seems like returning resources to your hand or like swapping cards or something like that is some kind of design space that could be played with in the future, for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
or just like a card that has an ability that just is, if this is made into a resource, get this effect or whatever.
But
I
yeah,
like it. It's very simple, but I think it definitely um, it sounds like a very elegant way to just make things go fast and smooth
yeah,
with
yeah.
less
I
frustration.
definitely like it better than say something like Hearthstone or Snap, where you just go up one
Automatically.
energy automatically each
Yeah,
turn. This gives you the choice to, strategically decide, okay, am I going to put down a resource? You know, at a certain point, you know, you can say, okay, I've hit as much as I need. Now I don't need to put down any more cards as resources. I can hold everything in my hand.
and I like
So
need all my good cards. I don't want to get rid of them. So
Hmm.
yeah.
you put two down before you even start.
Yep.
Then is it you get the choice to put one down at the start of every
It's
uh
it's at the end of each round.
Hmm.
okay. But you don't have to.
Well, the
You
end.
You
don't
That's
have to.
choose
No,
interesting
to.
no.
because after you've drawn more cards or before.
It's after you've drawn.
Okay. Okay.
Oh, okay. I was
That
gonna
makes
say because it
sense.
might be interesting to be like, I really want to play this last card, but I really need another resource
Yeah,
next
that would
turn.
be kind of rough, but after you draw makes sense. So yeah.
Yep, yeah, and it should be mentioned you do draw two cards at the end of each round, not one like most
Is
games.
there
So even
Hmm.
if you are, um, playing a resource every turn, you're still going to be, kind of at least maintaining your hand size.
Mm-hmm.
which is you start with what, six cards,
Six.
drop two of them.
Yep. So you start with basically four cards at turn one.
Do we know if there's a hand sized limit?
There is not a hand size limit. So when you hit the point where you feel like you have enough resources, technically you could just sit there and draw your whole deck into your hand if you want. So, um, of course, you only get one action at a time. So, I mean, there's not as big of an advantage to having a pile of cards in your hand always.
Do we
Um,
want to mention the aspects next too? Because I thought that was an important part of the resources too.
yeah, that was actually kind of the next part they jumped to in the live stream is they went over, deck building, um, which is going to be a minimum 50 cards. There's no maximum deck size, just a minimum.
Does that mean? Does that?
The
Because
giant stack
we
from
all
I
know
mean,
the
that
I mean,
was it
memes.
yeah,
Yu-Gi-Oh.
the Yu-Gi-Oh story, yeah. So yeah, I suppose if somebody does that, they might actually implement a maximum deck size. But at the same time, I'm willing to bet it's probably not going to win, so people aren't going to do it. Um, but yeah, you can have 3 copies of any card in your deck. Not 2 or 4
Hmm.
like other games. They went with 3. Plus, you'll have a leader and a base, which we've kind of talked about in the
And
previous.
and those aren't really even in your deck per
Yeah,
se
yeah, the
because they
leader and
start out.
yep, the leader and the
So
base.
technically, it's 52 cards.
Yeah,
So if you don't sleeve your cards, you could put them in like a playing card pack, like a cool guy, pull it out and let me pull out my
yeah, and if you
bicycle
drop
deck.
it,
Wait,
yeah.
it's
Will be
yeah.
really impressed.
Um, so yeah, those two will start out in play. And actually, the leaders and the bases are kind of important because they will have different aspects on them. I guess as if you're a Magic player, kind of think of this as your colors. There's 6 different aspects in the game. There's vigilance, aggression, command, cunning, heroism, and villainy. Your leader will have generally a couple. I think is always going to have 2 aspects.
Your leader will. It seems like they'll always have heroism or villainy.
Yes, they're always going to have heroism or villainy as an aspect, and then one of the other 4 aspects. I don't know, unless we get. I mean, maybe somewhere down the road we might get some weird kind of neutral uh, leaders that don't have either
Yeah,
heroism or villainy, but maybe have 2 of the other 4.
I could see that. That'd be cool.
Yeah, but I think they did say that you won't be able to have a leader based combo that gives you heroism and villainy. You get
Correct.
kind of
Correct.
combos of all the other ones, but you'll
The,
never have a hero villain
Hmm.
setup.
Yeah, your bases will always only have vigilance, command, aggression, or cunning. So the reason why this is important is because uh, the cards in your deck also have aspects on them, and as long as you're playing cards with aspects that match what's on your hero or your base, or rather, however many aspect icons are on that card have to match. You have to have that many matching icons between your hero and your base. Or if you do not, for each icon you can't match, it costs 2 extra to play them. So this will still let you, like you said, even if you're playing with a hero leader, you can still put villain cards in your deck, but because you won't be able to have a villain aspect, you're always going to be paying an extra 2 resources to play any of those cards.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm really curious to see if anyone's able to like make that worth it because 2 extra is a lot of extra resources. So I like that it's like yeah, technically you can put whatever with whatever, but probably you should keep things a little bit thematically cohesive.
Yeah, I mean it's real. It's a really you're only going to be a thing you're going to do
some
if
like
there's like
really
a really
niche
powerful
combos.
card or
Yeah,
something like that. And they did actually say that because of this aspect tax, uh, you're not going to see aspect mixing a ton in like constructed play
Hmm.
that they're foreseeing, but it exists more as a thing where during draft and sealed play, it still lets you get a deck built,
Right. You're not completely screwed.
yeah, without having to worry so much about making sure you're matching all your aspects and everything like that.
Yeah.
Just speculation because we won't know this for a while, but for draft and sealed, I wonder if they expect you to show up with a leader and a base ready
No,
because
no, they
no.
did actually mention that on the stream. Uh, you will not need any additional product for drafting or sealed. It's just you crack boosters and everything you need will be there. Most people assume that this means there's going to be like a some kind of a leader and or base dedicated slot in booster packs. So
Hmm.
That sounds like a lot, though.
Yeah.
If every booster you buy comes with a leader and a base, I don't know.
I
It
mean,
seems weird.
Or one or the other, maybe.
most magic boosters have, like they have like a dedicated slot for, like, there's going to be a token here or there's going to be a land here and stuff like that. I mean, if it's like a 15ish card booster or so, I mean, I could see them doing that pretty easily.
Yeah, and because we don't know more about what they said about like the art variants and stuff. So if like I buy 10 boosters and they all come with a Luke leader, but half of them are alt art, maybe I won't be so mad.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean that's kind of the main things about the deck building, about the aspects. Um, they did mention you're going to see characters um, with different aspects, like the same character with different aspects on them. Actually, we've already seen that with Leia. The leader version of Leia has a command aspect, and then they have just a plain unit version of Leia that has a cunning aspect on it. And this is just, they said it's just sort of meant to represent them at different points in time. Like
Right.
the command Leia is her in Echo Base. Like the artwork is of her in Echo Base, where she was actually, you know, commanding people. The cunning one is like the artwork is looks like it's from them escaping the Death Star.
Because at one point, eventually, your leader becomes a unit, but their aspects are still considered when playing the cards.
Yes.
'Cause I'm looking at the Leia commander as a unit, and the aspects are still on the right side of the card rather than the left where all the regular things are.
Hmm.
I can't wait to find out what happens if you play version of a character that's already in play, because they said that's something they have to talk about later. But
Yeah. Now,
Yeah.
uniqueness is mentioned in the rule book. It does say that you can't have yeah, two units with the same name in play. But lots of people are
uh,
like, what constitutes a name? Because both the leader Leia and the unit Leia cards both say Leia Organa for the name. But then they have, underneath the name, they have a different subtitle. So is the subtitle part of the name?
yeah, and
Seems like
the
The
way
probably
the,
not,
the quick
but
point, the quick start rules don't really get into that. And that is one thing they did mention, is down the road we will see the release of a more comprehensive, detailed rule book. This is meant to be played with the demos, as well as the rule book mentions it being part of a two-player starter set with Luke and Vader. So this will be bundled in with that as like a quick start, as it
yeah,
says. It
it
seems like it's going to be very much like standard FFG stuff, where it's you get your learn to play and then your rules reference.
yeah, and that'll probably just be online because there won't be a
Yeah.
product that comes with such a big thing. Yeah, just the way they handled the question where they said, "Okay, we hear you about the unique thing, and we'll get to it later," made me think maybe there's more to it than just you can't. Like,
Yeah, it seems like if the answer was just yes or no, they would have said something. But
yeah, because in my other major frame of reference is Doomtown Reloaded. There's cards where if you have different versions of the same character, and in this case they represent like a more experienced and more powerful version, you can
mhm.
put them into play and just swap them out. Like, oh hey, they leveled up.
mhm.
Whereas, like maybe it's just as simple as, oh, if you've got a different thing, they can't be in play at the same time, but I can play it, and this replaces the one that's in play without
Yeah,
costing any resources or something.
yeah. I mean, it's hard. It's hard to say exactly because different games handle it differently. Like the old Star Wars CCG, you could only have one hand in play. If you wanted to play a different hand, it would. I forget. I think the one that was in, I forget how the rules worked, if it was the one in play would get discarded or the one you tried to play would just sort of like fail and be lost. Um,
The card would go limp.
but yeah, and it was like all the different hands had different names. There was a card called just Han, and then there was Han Solo, and there was Captain Han Solo, and there
General, and
was,
yeah.
a General Solo and things like that. But they were
So
all considered the same person, so you could only have one in play of any of those. But then there's other games like in Magic the Gathering, they've got legendary creatures where you can only have one copy of a legendary creature out, but they also have like it's this technically the same person or the same creature, but the name is slightly different because it's like them at a different point in time or whatever like that. Um, and as long as the name's not exactly the same, you can have them both out.
It's
So
like quantum verse stuff.
yeah,
So the other question I have about uniqueness, I assume when you have like 3 Leias in your deck, if you put Leia out and she's killed, you can just play another Leia after that, or
I wouldn't see why you couldn't. There's
okay,
nothing in the rules right now that says you can't. So
okay, that's
that
interesting.
just makes that in yeah.
It's
That's
like
my assumption.
Vader
She's
coming
not. She's
back
not
even though he's
like.
been defeated or something.
She's
Yeah,
not. Yeah. She, being like most Star Wars games use the terminology defeated. They're not dead. They even like Battlefront 2 when you kill a hero, they don't like die. They just kind of like bow out and fade away, and they're like, "I'll be back."
they immediately respawn because someone was sitting waiting to play as them. Yeah,
and that is actually what they use in this is defeat. Also, they
Yeah. Now, Doomtown has where you could just get discarded and you can come back. Like, oh, I got knocked out of the fight, but I'll be back. But if you get them hard enough, they get aced and they go to Boot Hill, where they can never come back to the game. Nor can you play other copies of that because they're dead, and they're in your little cemetery.
wow.
It's great.
The other thing I wanted to ask about was like the leaders and bases. I feel like I don't know if they've talked about this before. It's at least the first time that I've kind of been hearing about it. Is the way that your leader is not the bases, but the way your leader like converts into a unit and then like joins the battlefield or whatever. Right? Was it called epic
yep,
action?
yep,
Yeah,
epic.
it's
Yeah,
like a late game kind of thing.
each leader has an epic action that they can do once per game. So there's like an epic action token that it looks like will be coming with that you'll be able to put on your cards to denote that um, it's you've already used up your epic action, and so it no longer can be. Um, which will convert your leader from just being out of play to being an actual unit um, on the in a lane. Right now, every leader we've seen is just a ground unit.
Because
There's not been any
when you're
space leaders revealed yet.
when your leader's just sitting there in this like ethereal leaders zone, they
They're
still
like in the
do have
command room.
like an action because like Luke can like give somebody with somebody with heroism or something.
That's was
He
Yep,
can
played
give them
this
a
turn.
shield.
Yeah.
yep. Luke can give people shields. Leia, I forget what she does.
And Vader has like a free damage thing, which is
Yep.
pretty crazy too.
Yeah, so
Although
that's
they're
like
like
a
dependent on if you've like played the right cards this round or whatever, which is kind of interesting to
and it's
plan out.
also
But
an action, which
that's like
that's
your
like whole
turn.
sort of turn. Yeah.
Yeah. But so then the
But there,
epic action they convert and now they're actually on the battlefield like a
yeah,
normal unit and they can be killed, right?
defeated. Nobody
Yep.
dies.
Defeated.
Yeah. So when
Yes.
when a leader gets defeated, rather than being just like discarded like others, it just flips back to its horizontal position and goes
Yeah,
back into like the leader zone. Um,
goes
and
back
so,
home.
yeah, and so you'll still be able to use its leader action, but you will not be able to like redo your epic action and convert it back into a
Hmm.
unit ever.
That's kind of interesting.
At least right now, there might be something that will, at some point down the line, allow the things to
Yeah.
happen.
I could see that. I think that seems like a cool mechanic though. That's kind of neat. the whole leader thing, and Luke can still go out and fight a little bit, but he's not like killed off permanently. You still kind of have him.
Mhm.
Seems kind of neat.
Yeah, walk us through the. I said waka waka. Waka waka. Walk us through the different types of cards because there's not too many, which is refreshing.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we just got done talking about leaders, and we talked about bases. Bases are important because they're essentially represent your life. Right now, all the bases we've seen have 30 hit points, and once your base is destroyed, defeated, you lose the game. They did mention there are more than there's been 4, I guess you could say, vanilla bases that have been revealed, just one for each aspect, and they've got 30 hit points. They did say there's more than just those 4 bases in this first set. So right now the bases don't do anything other than provide your hit points and your aspect, but maybe some of those ones we haven't seen yet will do more, like have less hit points but give you an extra ability to use or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know.
Yeah, there's really got to be special abilities on bases. Otherwise, what's the point of having different bases?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I
They have
could
the
see
aspect right
is,
now,
yeah,
and
they
that's
do
all, right?
right now. They've got an aspect, and then
Well,
they
right,
also
but
do
that
have a trait. They like that's the
Little
planet they
keyword.
are, like Dagobah Swamp
uh,
says Dagobah. So
Hmm.
there are some cards that trigger with like based on how many Imperial cards you have out or whatever. So it, but even that still seems like sort of redundant to keep printing a whole ton of bases that are all essentially the same card. So there's got to be more to them that we just haven't seen. I'm hoping. So yeah, so leaders, bases. The bulk of your deck is going to be units. There's space units and there's ground units. Um, Space units get played out in the space lane. Ground units get played in the ground lane, and for the most part, they don't interact with each other.
they did say they think most people are going to lean on ground units,
Yep,
but then
yep,
that might mean you might bring more space units because you'll be expecting less defense there. I don't know. It sounds kind of interesting, like just a meta game of who's bringing more space or ground.
yeah. And
Um,
just in general, there's going to be more ground units in there than there is space. Space units generally are going to cost more also than the ground. Yeah, their main purpose is going to be to engage in combat, to kill off your opponents, to defeat your opponent's units, and to damage their bases. You'll be able to put upgrades. Upgrades are another card type. You'll be able to put upgrades onto units.
is there a limit of one upgrade per unit?
Right now that I've seen, I do not believe there is.
Because I was wondering because the tokens, which we'll talk about in a second, are considered upgrades, as in they're like attached to your card.
Hmm.
So it made me think like, oh well, why does this need to be considered a upgrade when it's also already a token? Um, and like shield seems so powerful, like it made sense to me that it would be limited to like you can't have more than one. But I don't know. I was
But
wondering if
it
that
you
was a
know
thing that had been
it
clarified.
it it doesn't seem to be, as far as we've seen. There shouldn't be a limit on the number of shield tokens you have, unless I've missed something. So yeah, so upgrades will go on. They generally will have an effect that will make the unit more powerful. Either give it more attack, more hit points, or both. And then oftentimes will also have a secondary effect, such as like the one that we have seen, Vader's lightsaber. If you play it onto Darth Vader, it will immediately do 4 damage to another ground unit.
Wow,
Did
So
you?
that's big.
Because at that when they talked about that on the stream, they mentioned that this design choice was an intentional like homage to the old CCG.
well, they just
I
sort of
feel
said
like
card games in the past, because I mean a lot of them have done the similar
right.
thing where it's like Vader's lightsaber in the Star Wars CCG. Technically you can play it on any character, or most of these you can play them onto any character, but if you play them on the matching character, they are more powerful then.
Right. I feel like it would. There was things like that in Destiny and Star Wars, the card game as well,
Hmm.
LCG.
And then what's the wording on Vader's lightsaber? Attached to a ground unit? Is that all it says?
Yeah, it just says attached to a non-vehicle unit,
Oh, non-vehicle. Okay, I was
and then
about
it said,
to
yeah.
say, what if I have an ATSD and I give it a lightsaber? But they thought of that. Okay, okay.
That'd be great. I
Wouldn't
want
that
an
be great? Have it
ATSD
on its like
sized
foot
lightsaber.
and it's like kicking you and cutting
Yeah,
you.
but no, it's walking on its hind legs, and it's got like a stance.
Yeah, attach little robot arms under the head instead of a gun. Perfect.
The last
I
main.
mean, the options are unlimited. If
Oh.
we can't do that, then
Wow.
I'm gonna, say maybe we're a little limited.
The last main type of card that's going to be in your deck is going to be events, and these are one-time use cards. You pay the cost, they have an effect that happens, and then they go into discard. Um, Now these ones, when you look at the cards, these look a little different. They've got the artwork on the bottom instead of the top, which I really don't like because it makes me feel like I've got upside down cards in my hand.
Yeah, it's kind of weird.
Yeah, I
Um,
initially I was like, well, that's fine because it's fine. And then the more I've like looked at the rule book and looked at the cards, I'm like, that card is wrong.
Yeah, it looks weird.
Now they did say that they did this. They made this choice because they wanted sort of like a quick visual indicator to be like, this card is different from the other ones. It doesn't stay out in play permanently like the other ones that have the artwork on the top. So I mean,
I don't know. It feels like
I,
there's a lot of ways you could have done that. In most card games, it's
yeah, I mean,
fine.
so yeah,
So
so I get what they're going for there. I don't know if I like it. I'm sure it's one of those things where after I've played the game for a while, I'll just get used to it. But and they sort of did the same thing with the leader and the base. Those two cards are the only horizontal cards in the game. Again, to denote these are the two types of cards that you start the game in play.
that doesn't look as weird to me. I don't know.
Yeah, one of the speaking about visual design, I really like how each aspect has its own like sort of frame. Like if you look at command, the green one, there's like the little greebly frame around the art, and the text is different, and each one has its own
Mhm.
different kind of color frame, which I just like how they could have just made them all the same but different colors, but like the I don't know, the little Star Wars garbage in the margins is different too, which I think looks very cool.
Yeah.
It's gonna be hard to remember which one is which word. It's gonna be like, the green one, the beige one, right? That's
I
gonna be a
mean,
little
even the lead
confusing.
designer said, like during the thing, he had to like think because he just calls it green, blue, yellow, red, or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, because cards will probably just reference them by the symbol and
Yeah.
not their name, so
Hmm.
you
Yeah,
probably
like
won't have
like
to remember
that's how like Luke's card is worded. It just says if you have a a
symbol.
heroism symbol unit.
I like knowing though, just for like thematic purposes. I'm like, yeah, of course Luke is heroism and vigilance, and yeah, Leia is heroism and command. Like that makes sense.
Hmm.
But in gameplay, it'll just people are probably just gonna say green, yellow, whatever.
Yeah. The last type of card in the game that isn't now this isn't part of your deck, but it's token cards, which is a little different than most games. So these are for shield tokens and experience tokens. Experience tokens are basically just a +1/+1 token. If you play Magic, gives a unit
I don't.
+1/+1 attack and +1 or I guess it's power, +1 power and +1 hit points, I think is what they call it. So yeah, so this is a little different from most games where it's just like your token is literally a token that you put on the card, whereas here it's Just like you said, it's almost like another upgrade card to add to your unit.
Other card games that use the word token to refer to cards, I think typically those are like full on units that just didn't start in your deck. Like, oh, you summon a magic bear, grab that card from your pocket or whatever because it wasn't in your deck.
Yeah.
Whereas this is more like an actual like. Is I think they even said in the future for organized play they will likely have actual tokens to represent these. It's just I'm sure it's just cheaper for them to produce like this.
Well, yes. Well, yes. So that's what OP said. But I think it was Danny. He mentioned that they did it as cards because they wanted sort of another design space to work with. Kind of is I forget his exact wording, but he sort of implied that like if you look here,
Like the shield has a bunch of text explaining it. That's
well, and not only that, I was going to say like the shield has a trait. It has an armor trait. The experience has a learned trait. The fact that they're also giving them traits makes me wonder, is this something that they sort of plan to play around with in the future?
Yeah, like
Where you
oh,
might have a different type of experience token or a different type of shield token or something like that
yeah,
that's
like
not an armor or learned or something like that. And I don't know. I don't know. So there could be. It seems like he implied that there's reasons that they wanted them to be tokens, like actual cards. Now
yeah,
that I think about it, I wonder if these tokens aren't going to be, since there's going to be, if they're putting enough base, if they're putting a base in every pack, I wonder if these tokens are going to be on the back sides of the bases.
Hmm.
So that way,
ah,
even if you're getting a bunch of extra copies of bases, there's
you
still a
just got
use
the
for them.
man. It'd be cool if there was more than just one art for each token. I think the art on those tokens is really cool. I love that B wing and Luke
The
and
B-wing looks
Yoda.
very cool. Although I will say it's being shot by red lasers. Wouldn't all the Imperial ships have green lasers? What's
Ooh,
going
all
on
right.
there, FFG?
Because
Not a big
it's
deal.
unlimited. You're not limited to just fighting Imperial
They could
skirt.
be fighting some pirates or something like that.
What
Oh, and
or
if
what are
you,
the color? Do we know what lasers come out of a lambda shuttle? Only Tie
um,
fighters have green lasers.
I
I
mean,
think that I think they shoot green also, if I remember right from.
like turbo lasers are green, right?
Turbo lasers.
Yeah, turbo lasers. What? That's a real like on a Star Destroyer or on the Death
No,
Star. Those are all green.
you said turbo lasers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I made a joke saying gerbil lasers,
Oh
Oh,
yeah.
and you missed my joke, and then I had to
Okay.
deconstruct the joke, and now we're here.
Okay. Anyways, I don't know what we were talking about. Tokens. The art's
yeah.
cool.
I like the art on. We didn't talk about the one event that they've shown us, which is called Vanquish, which is a tactic, and it
Well, we have seen two
just
events, but this one was Vanquish is the one that was
what was the
in
first
the
event?
rulebook. That I am your father card
Oh yeah,
that
the
they
one that
tweeted out on
says
Father's Day.
it was like deal 4 damage to a unit unless your
7.
opponent says no, then you get to draw cards or something.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yep. Deal 7 damage unless your opponent says no. Then they draw 3 cards instead.
Yeah, I mean that's a cool card, and I like its vibe. I mean it's mechanically just very sound, but also just the fact that it says like, hey, if they say no, then do this instead, which is like, okay, well that
Sort of a
I
thematic,
lighthearted.
silly thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it should be like if they scream no at the top of their lungs. This will be happening all the time at a tournament. That would be fun.
Can you imagine a huge convention hall where just sporadically players are just screaming no, just off and on? That would
Like
be
every
so
round.
cool.
Although, of course, some people had to start complaining about it immediately. They were like, well, what if my opponent says just draw 3 cards, and then I draw the 3 cards, and then he's all like, "I didn't say no," and then calls a judge, and then
Then
and
you both get disqualified for being annoying.
yeah, well, that's what, like, one of the guys I saw, one guy who is a former, like, Destiny judge at major events, was all like, "Yeah, I would hand out anyone who gave me a judge call for something like that. They're getting a warning point for sure."
Good. But yeah, the Vanquish art is pretty cool with Vader picking up Palpatine. And I do like to imagine it that every time you play that card, Vader is coming out and doing that to whatever character you're defeating. Like it's
Just
like
throwing it down
literally.
a pit, like just using it on an Ewok. Vader comes out down the hole. It seems very. It is 5 resources, but it just
Yeah.
an insta kill on anything that's not a leader,
Uh-huh.
which seems really good. I wonder how. I don't know. I guess I don't have any idea like what the vibe of the
Yeah.
battlefield is. How
I
many
mean, that
units
means
are out
I
there?
mean, that's gonna be a good chunk of your resources. I mean, it's gonna take you a little while. I mean, at least three rounds to build up to 5 resources, unless you've got, stuff that lets you do some resource cheating.
Do we want to get into the mechanics of like how the rounds work?
I
I
think
mean,
we
we
might
could,
be able to breeze through it. We
yeah,
don't need to get super technical, and we can point you to go to YouTube and look for Main Deck. It's the name of the YouTube channel. They
yeah,
have a really good how to play video if you want all the
Yeah.
nitty gritty. But I think we should just talk about sort of an overview and if there are mechanics that we find particularly interesting or noteworthy.
yeah. So, yeah, just real quick. Like we've said, you start the game. You've got your base and your leader in play, and then off to either side of your base and your leader, that's going to be where all your space units will deploy, and the other side will be where all your ground units deploy. Um, you draw 6 cards, put down 2 of them as resources. There is a mulligan option in the game. It's all or none of your 6 cards. Once you've both drawn your cards, played your resources, then the action phase begins, and players go back and forth, each doing one action. Actions are either playing a card. When you play a unit, it does come into play exhausted.
Lame.
Um,
What kind of
yeah.
magic bullcrap is that?
So play a card, attack with a unit, use an action ability, which is, um, some cards will have abilities on them that will say like action, do this thing. Or you can take the initiative, or you can pass. Taking the initiative, basically just only one player per round can take the initiative, and it basically says when the next round starts, you're the first player.
It also means you auto pass for the rest of the round, I believe.
Um,
I thought that's what.
no, you don't auto pass for the rest of the round. It's the way it works. The round ends when either both players have passed, or you like there's a pass and a take initiative round or action.
Okay.
Like,
Take
right.
it. It's yeah when there's 2 passes back to back, or if one of those 2 passes was a take initiative. But so you could take the initiative and your opponent goes, and then you get to go again, and so on.
Oh, no, no.
But
Okay, no. It does, I'm sorry. You were right. The rules do say after taking the initiative, you can't take any further actions. You're basically
okay,
considered
Yeah.
to have passed for all the remaining
I
actions. You're
think
right.
that
that's
makes
You're right.
good. So you don't
it's a
just grab it right
big
away.
right. It's a big like I'm committing to ending this, but I'm going to choose to end it before you're done with your stuff. I mean, I get to go first, but I'm going to have less things to do this turn. That's good.
Yeah, I think that's neat.
Once both players have passed, then the action phase ends. You draw 2 cards. You have the option to play 1 card from your hand as another resource. Then you ready all your exhausted cards, and then you go back and start a new action phase with whoever last took the initiative and is the first player. Yes, when you attack or when you do combat, you get to choose to either attack your opponent's unit or their base. If you attack their unit, both units deal their damage to each other simultaneously. So you might kill each other. It basically just depends on how many hit points that particular unit has. Damage does persist between rounds on units. So over time, even if they survive a battle, they're going to become more damaged.
That's where we've got actual tokens is the damage. It comes with token counters for your units and for your base. And I'm kind of excited to see, people are going to make dials, like cool little Star Wars dials for, because 30, that's a lot for just throwing tokens on there.
Yeah.
Obviously, you'll have like fives and tens or something, but still.
And I thought it was interesting in the combat there's no like blocking by default. There's some special abilities, right? But normally you can just go straight after the base and they can't actually stop you. Right.
Is there
Which
no
is pretty
does
interesting.
do units in play don't have the option to like help defend the base?
No,
Unlike
nope.
Didn't seem like it, right?
No, but some units there is a sentinel keyword which basically says as long as you've got units out with sentinel, then your enemy units in that arena cannot attack any of your non-sentinel units or your base. They have to kill the sentinels first.
sort of like a look at me, shoot me.
Yeah. Unless they have the
That,
saboteur keyword. Saboteurs get to ignore sentinels.
Okay.
that's yeah, that's interesting because you could have a game. It would be a dumb game, but where both players don't even fight units and they just all dump everything into the base and see who can do that first.
And
Obviously, the
sometimes
game
that's
is
going to
going
be
to
the
be
smart play,
Yeah,
right? But other
I mean,
times
like
you want
that's
to take their stuff out. So yeah.
it. It depends on the type of deck and stuff.
right.
And I know in Hearthstone, like that was a strategy. Like they would call it doing damage to your opponent's face, hitting them in the face. So like there was certain kind of decks called like they were called like the face hunter because that's was its strategy was to get out a lot of guys really fast and just uh, go right into your opponent's face because a lot of the characters were too weak. Like they weren't going to win in a stand up fight against your a lot of the things your opponent was playing anyway. So you just went right for their face.
Yeah, it seemed like the main sort of gameplay loop and choice you have to make every turn is, do I send him at the base or do I need to deal with the guys he's about to send at my base? Which, I mean, on the surface, it seems very, like you said, when there's no like blocking or anything, it seems kind of like too simple, but I think it's actually going to be a very interesting series of choices you have to make every time because they're like,
Yeah.
well, I could go hit your base, but if I do that, I'm ignoring that TIE fighter, which is going to hit my base. And I was like,
I think especially when you're trading turns so quickly and you have these little mini turns, like the situation will be changing so quickly too, because you're also deciding like, do I need to like wait with this X-wing for later? Like I could just attack his base now, but now it's going to be tapped for the rest of the turn.
right,
So
because yeah, there's going to be, if you each have 6 cards, one which becomes a resource, you're going to each have about 5 cards at least every turn. That's a lot of, that's like 10 mini turns where, there's that much uncertainty ahead of you where you're like, oh, so it sounds very interesting and fun to me. I like how, just on the surface, it's all very mechanically rather simple, but it's already making me think of all these possibilities.
yeah,
And it's really exciting.
I'm sure it gets very complicated when you have different keywords and special abilities, but
Right.
just like the base level, I thought sounded really. I mean, just the mini turns back and forth sounded really really cool to me, and I really liked how it's like there's still a round end like once you get through all your stuff because there's this kind of natural momentum to it where it's like, okay, we've both like run out of resources and run out of unexhausted units, so you get to a point where you're both like, okay, we're gonna end the round. And I don't know, that just sounded really cool
Mhm.
to me. You
It
get like the
sounds like
mini turn and you
See,
get this like
yeah, see, because
interesting.
like there,
It's
Joe. Like that's a time when you might want to, attack one of your opponent's units. It hasn't activated yet. So if you can kill it off
Mm-hmm.
before they get to do an action with it, that can,
yeah, kill it while
you
it's
know,
sitting there exhausted.
well, or yeah,
Or if you're going first in the
Right.
round, yeah,
But I feel like I'm the guy who only played Doomtown, getting a lot of Doomtown vibes from this. Just with what you're saying about the end of thing where you kind of both pass to make it end. That's how it is in Doomtown, where you go,
well,
I do a
that's
thing, you do a thing, I do a thing, and then when you both pass, that's when like the day ends. I think that's
that's
not
that's
unique
the
to
same way it
these.
worked in Destiny, also.
Yeah, just like one thing, and I like that a lot more than um, games where you do like 50 things before your opponent gets to go,
yeah.
because
Yeah,
I don't
and
It's
know.
not
and
as interactive to do it that way.
yeah, and and they did talk about that some during the stream. It's like, they wanted to, it doesn't feel good to sit there while your opponent takes a 10-minute long turn. Um, and
Just being
you
able to
just
immediately react is so thematically fun too. Probably there's less geography here, but in like Doomtown, like, okay, my whole turn is just I'm gonna move this guy to the town square, and then your whole turn is move your guy to the town square, and then my whole turn is he's gonna go back home because he doesn't like being there with that guy, and there's this sort of like slow tension of the characters maneuvering around each other, and it's like if you did like five things, that's just that little like cinematicness doesn't happen, and I think that's fun with even in Star Wars and in this where there's not like
The
geography. Like even the
locations, yeah.
CCG had like geography where you move between the like location cards.
uh-huh.
Where this is doesn't have that, but I think you still might be like, oh, I'm going to put out this card, and then you're going to put out that card, and then I'm going to be like, well, then maybe I'll put out this guy, and then we're going to have to do a little fight real quick, like a
Yeah, I
lot more
think
reacting.
yeah, those little mini turns sound like there's like so much more room for decision there compared to like when you have a whole round to do it. My only question about it though, and you guys would know from having played Destiny more, since you're like making decisions more often, does it still end up slowing down a little bit because you keep having to like reevaluate the scenario and be like, oh, let me plan out this perfect single action, or does it
hmm
still move really fast?
Eh,
no, I mean, I think that's it's you're still moving pretty fast. It's in fact, I think part of it is you can't plan too far ahead. I mean, you always have a general idea of where you want your turn to go and what you want to accomplish, but the thing is you're always shifting what you're doing based on what your opponent does on his actions.
Yeah, I don't think that it's not going to be like bam, 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 bam. There's going to be a lot of like I put a thing down and I'm going to go okay. Like it's not like rapid fire, but it is still like the fact that only one thing has happened since you last played that you have to react to does make it maybe not actual time faster. It does make it a little bit more like thematically exciting.
Yeah. I think it
Yeah.
should be pretty fast. The only other
Well, they
part that
they
struck
said
me,
they said the game they said on average games um tend to run about 10 to 20 minutes for a full game.
wow,
So,
that seems really fast to me.
Right? Yeah, that
um
seems super fast.
I don't know. I
The
mean, that's kind of, your length of a average Magic game. Actually, that,
okay.
like, I don't know. That's can be kind of a long Magic game, actually.
I'm just used to these long minis games, I guess. The only other thing about the round and action format that threw me a little bit is based on some of the abilities we've seen, like Luke's, that's like his action is do a thing on a unit you've played this round. And I'm like, I feel like I'm going to forget that right away when we're trading back and forth. Like, it's going to be like, I know it's tapped, but I can't remember to, there's going to be times where you're like a little confused. I don't think there's like a token for that. So, like, that's like a slight imperfection to that shared round format, but I think overall it sounds like a really fun mechanic.
I mean, that kind of covers all the gameplay. Really, that's basically everything that they talked about in the stream. Oh yeah, I didn't mention like if you happen to run out of cards in your deck, um,
Yeah.
then
Interestingly,
you
milling
don't
is a thing.
yeah, you don't immediately lose the game like in some other card games. You just each time you would need to draw a card, but can't. Your base takes 3 damage. I mean, you'll
Yeah,
lose
I
the
like
game
that.
eventually if you've run out of cards, but you still kind of have a little bit of time to try and save the game.
Yeah, I think that's cool. And I'm curious to see what sort of cards like force your opponent to discard or top deck stuff.
I know that those will be cards I'm playing. I love Millen.
That's why
I
I'm going to
like
bring a 500 card deck. And so it'll just be impossible. Also have
yeah,
3
beat the
copies of every card.
but to balance that, it's not doesn't say discard one card. It says discard
A
this
percentage.
percentage
Yeah.
of your opponent's
So you got to count
total
how many
deck
cards his
size.
deck has left. Get out your calculator. Now that would be
Like
something the old CCG would do. There was actually like at least one card required you to use pi in calculating what it did.
Oh my gosh.
was it that the given is
It was
I
I think
think
that was
in
Brainiac that
oh okay that makes sense.
actually I
The
think his destiny value was pi also if I remember right.
um
But yeah, like you said, Joe, I think the main thing at this point, these base rules seem really cool to me. The main thing is like, I want to know more cards. There's probably a bunch of cards that have been shown that I just haven't seen. I want to know more cards and the keywords because then that'll like be this extra layer of how it actually like finally comes together is how those keywords kind of interact and
Hmm.
what actually ends up coming out in play.
Yeah,
yeah, and
there
with
are a couple keywords in the rule book that we haven't seen cards for, but they do have the keywords in the rule book.
Hmm.
There's like ambush, grit, overwhelm, a few of those. But
I feel like I'm like 60-40 on games where I'm mostly just excited to see what characters they put in it because I'm just like lore and stuff, and then 40% like, well, I want to see the mechanics and how they like what do they do in the game. But I'm just like, well, I just want to see more cards. Like we've seen some of the art, we know, like oh, they've got Cassian and stuff, and it's like, well, just show me their card. I want to see which of my favorite little guys are here, or which weird deep. How deep are we getting? How deep cut are we getting on the starter set?
Mm-hmm.
You know,
yeah, I don't think we're getting any super deep cuts here in these first few sets. But I mean, I think that's kind of the hope of if the game if it's successful enough and keeps going. I mean, at some point they're going to have to start doing some really wild deep cuts, which is going
I
to be fun, I think.
I
Turgle
feel
and
like you want to
Geode.
like do like a little bit of deep cut in every package because otherwise you're going to hit that point where everything has to be a deep cut. Un-
Yeah.
Unless you just feel like okay, well, let's release the 10th version of Luke Skywalker.
Well,
So
I
you got to
mean
like sprinkle them around.
that is going to happen. I mean, all these. I mean, I guarantee you that every single, especially if they do set rotation, if they do for like organized play and stuff, for if they do
Mm,
set rotation,
I forgot
which
that was a
is
thing.
which is a thing they haven't discussed yet. Um, I bet they're gonna want to always have a Luke, a Leia, a Han, a Vader, etc. that are legal for organized play. So at the very
Yeah, that
least,
makes sense.
they're gonna be reprinting the a version of these cards every set rotation.
I'm just excited to see where it goes, and I'm not too worried about uh not liking it. like maybe I think I'll just be like, well, new Star Wars game. It's fun. I already know people locally who are going to be playing it, so
Yeah, I mean,
good
so far
enough.
it looks great. It looks like it's going to be a lot of fun. It's not quite. I mean, like I've said before, like a remaster of like the old CCG is like the dream. I mean, but it's also a thing I know is never going to happen. So
Yeah, I think honestly at this point with everything we're seeing, it's like I'm more excited about this game than I should be for like a CCG that like I don't want to have
Right.
to buy these boosters. I like
Exactly.
everything they're showing keeps pulling me back in, even though I'm like I shouldn't want to buy this game. Like well, it looks really cool.
Yeah.
Uh,
And
y-
I'm
y-
so we haven't even
you
seen that
can
because they
inherit
mentioned
some of like my bulk commons and stuff, Kurt, to
Sure.
build that for.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll probably
uh
have lots of them.
because they mentioned like the alt arts and like the collectible aspect being slightly different from other games to focus more on like collectability and stuff. I'm like, oh, that sounds fun too, because like I
Mhm.
like alt arts and I like Star Wars characters in art.
Yeah, that's a thing. I hope that I can't wait till we finally get to see what some of the alternate art and like foil treatments and stuff are going to look like for this
Right,
game.
because if I recall, the rarities were going to be mostly based on these alternate visual treatments rather than
Well, I think
the
that they said like
characters.
that's what you're gonna have, like those are gonna be the real chase cards. I mean, you're still got
Okay,
your standard rarities of like, common, uncommon, and rare that we've seen so far. Um,
but you probably won't have like an ultra rare version of Vader that's Vader or whatever. Like if anything's like ultra or mega rare, it's gonna be like a fancy version of a card that's also just rare.
yeah, I mean, we still don't know for sure, but I mean that's kind of what they've implied. Is anything beyond like a rarity is going to be some kind of foil or alt art or yeah.
Right, and that usually just means how they're distributed in the booster, right? You can expect like X commons, two uncommons, and one rare in every booster.
Yeah,
Like,
generally. And then again, we don't know how it's going to work, but like in Magic, it's then each slot has like an X chance to be a foil, or sometimes they will just have like a foil slot in the booster. That it's every card game does their distributions for that kind of stuff just a little bit differently. Whether it's going to be just like one slot in the booster that's going to be like, it might be a foil or it might be an alt art or something like this, or if it's just going to be every slot in the booster has a chance to be one of these chase cards. We don't know yet.
cool. Well, after seeing the quick start rules and their live stream, I am more excited for this game than I already was. And like Kurt said, I'm scared of how excited I am.
Yeah.
'Cause, uh,
I'm
so
selling
I
I'm selling my Magic collection right now, actually, to fund my
that
what I'm
sounds like a very
seeing as a
healthy
Magic
goal.
game, as a future addiction for this game.
I really like that for you. I'm happy for you. Magic seems like it's like when someone's like, "Well, I'm finally getting sober." It's like, "Well, good for you, man."
This will actually be the second time in my life I've sold off my Magic collection. So
You
yeah,
relapsed. Yeah.
I
E-
relapsed.
except in this case, like going sober just means, well, I'm trading one addiction for another.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's what I approve of more.
It's sort of like, yeah, I quit I quit doing heroin to get drunk all the time or whatever.
Yeah.
One is better than the other, probably,
One's
but
more, at the very least, one's more socially acceptable
Right.
and legally accessible. Anyway, anyone have any closing thoughts? I think this is a pretty productive conversation.
I think we covered it.
All right. If you at home are listening or watching to this, I genuinely want to know what you think about this. And just to prove I'm not trying to get engagement bait, tell us on our Discord or somewhere where the algorithm's not going to favor us for your comments.
But if you really want to
Um,
tell us on our YouTube comments, we won't stop you.
I want to know what people think because I've just, heard what you guys think and I want to know what other people think. Maybe they don't think it looks good at all. Maybe they listen to us talk for an hour and a half just to get to the point where they say, "Nah, it's not for me."
and And speaking of the Discord, it's just a great place for discussion on all different types of Star Wars games or Star Wars media if you like to talk about Star Wars stuff. And some non-Star Wars stuff, but mostly Star Wars.
If you like to talk about Star Wars stuff in like a good way, I don't know. Like
Yeah,
I
a
don't like
less
to.
toxic.
Yeah, I don't. I'm very selective of who and where I will talk about Star Wars with people, and our Discord is one of my favorite places to do that. Anyway, thanks everybody for watching. Be sure to check out jodocast.com or yeah, well just go there, you'll find everything you need, like our Twitter and our YouTube and our everything else. All
Patreon.
sorts of good stuff. Yeah, Patreon, that's an important place. And outro away.